I finally hit the financial jackpot. A massive bonus meant freedom from soul-crushing student debt. I rushed to share the joy with my family, expecting confetti and cheers. Instead, their hands instantly shot out, demanding my windfall for their wish list. New cars, rent money. Suddenly, my dream celebration morphed into their entitlement-feeding frenzy. Was I their daughter, or just their brand-new ATM? I'm Olivia, 32. I was a successful software engineer, navigating the vibrant tech scene, yet constantly shadowed by the immense weight of my student loan debt. It was a six-figure burden I accrued earning my degree, a constant drain on my finances despite my decent salary. I'd meticulously budgeted, lived modestly in my South Austin apartment, and dreamed of the day I could finally be free from those relentless monthly payments. Then, one Tuesday, everything shifted. An email landed in my inbox detailing my annual performance review. Not only had I earned a substantial year-end bonus, far exceeding my expectations, but a significant chunk of my company stock options had also vested. Doing the math, I realized the combined amount was staggering, enough to potentially wipe out my entire student loan balance in one fell swoop, years ahead of schedule. The thought was intoxicating. No more interest accruing, no more massive payments dictating my budget. True financial freedom felt within reach for the first time. Overwhelmed with relief and excitement, I couldn't imagine keeping this life-altering news to myself. My first instinct, deeply ingrained, was to share this incredible milestone with the people who were supposed to be my biggest cheerleaders, my family. That following Sunday felt perfect for sharing my news. We were all gathered for our usual BBQ at my parents' place, just outside Austin. The smell of hickory smoke in the air, casual chatter flowing. After we'd eaten, feeling buoyant, I decided to make my announcement. "So, I got some amazing news at work," I began, a wide smile on my face. "My bonus was huge this year, and my stock options vested. Long story short, I have enough to finally pay off all my student loans." I waited for the cheers, the congratulations. Instead, an awkward silence fell. My mom exchanged a look with Dad, who shifted uncomfortably in his lawn chair. It was Chloe who spoke first, swirling the ice in her lemonade. "Wow, Liv, that's a lot of money." Ben, her husband, chimed in. "Yeah, that's great. Actually, Chloe and I were just talking about how much our rent is going up next month." Before I could even process that, Mom added, "And your father and I, honey, we've been worried sick about the old car. The repair bills are killing us. A little help with a down payment would make such a difference." I stared at them, my initial joy evaporating. "Wait, I just told you I can finally be debt-free, and your first thought is how I can give you money." Dad cleared his throat. "Well, Olivia, being debt-free is nice, but family helps family." Chloe nodded vigorously. "It seems a bit selfish to hoard it all for yourself when we're struggling." Selfish? After the $750 I sent Mom and Dad monthly, and the $8,000 I'd given Chloe for her house down payment just 2 years ago. Disappointment hit me like a physical blow. Despite the sting from that Sunday BBQ, old habits died hard. I kept sending the $750 to my parents each month, like clockwork. Guilt and a misplaced sense of obligation wouldn't let me stop. Chloe's requests started subtly, morphing into frequent texts about unexpected bills or needing just a couple $100 until Ben's next freelance check cleared. "Just a little help, Liv. You know how it is," she'd say. Each time I'd transfer the money, telling myself it was temporary, that things would get better for them. But The thank yous became briefer, sometimes non-existent, replaced by an unsettling expectation. It started feeling less like helping family and more like servicing an account. My phone buzzing with a call from Mom or Chloe began to trigger a knot of anxiety in my stomach. Was it a genuine check-in, or another financial ask disguised as catching up? Increasingly, it was the latter. Conversations rarely revolved around my life or work anymore. They inevitably circled back to their financial struggles and subtle, or not so subtle, hints about how my windfall, even after paying loans, meant I could be doing more. The warmth I once felt in our interactions was chilling, replaced by a transactional coldness. I felt like an ATM, valued not for who I was, but for what I could provide. Resentment began to simmer beneath the surface, a constant low burn of feeling used and unseen by the very people I loved most. A few weeks later, it was Chloe's birthday. The party was held at her mother-in-law Diane's house, a sprawling place in a manicured Austin suburb that screamed old money. I bought Chloe an expensive gift, hoping to smooth things over, plastering on a smile as I walked in. I barely had time to hand Chloe her present before Diane cornered me near the appetizer table. Her smile was tight, her eyes sharp. "Olivia, dear," she began, her voice carrying just enough to silence nearby conversations. "I've been meaning to talk to you." I braced myself. "Ben tells me you came into a significant amount of money recently. A windfall, wasn't it?" I nodded cautiously. "Well," she continued, louder now, "I find it quite perplexing that while you're sitting on all that cash, paying off your own debts ahead of schedule, poor Chloe and Ben are struggling to make ends meet. Don't you think family should help family?" The air crackled. Faces turned towards us. My cheeks flushed hot. I do help," I stammered, feeling ambushed. Diane scoffed dismissively. "Pocket change, I imagine. A woman with your means could easily ease their burden substantially. It seems rather self-absorbed not to." I looked desperately towards my own parents, who suddenly found the intricate pattern on the Persian rug fascinating. Chloe fidgeted, avoiding my gaze entirely. No one said a word in my defense. In that moment, surrounded by semi-strangers and betrayed by my own family's silence, the humiliation felt suffocating. I had never felt so utterly alone or so profoundly hurt. The humiliation from Chloe's birthday party festered for days. I couldn't shake the image of Diane's accusing face or, worse, my own family's averted eyes. I knew I couldn't let it go. I had to try and clear the air. I requested we all talk, just my parents, Chloe, Ben, and me, during our next scheduled Sunday gathering, hoping a more private setting would allow for honesty. When the moment came, after some strained small talk, I took a deep breath. "Look," I started, my voice trembling slightly. "I need to talk about what happened at Chloe's party, what Diane said, how she said it. It was incredibly hurtful and embarrassing, and honestly, I felt completely abandoned when none of you spoke up. Instead of understanding, I was met with defensiveness." "Oh, Olivia, don't be so dramatic," Chloe sighed. "Diane was just worried about us." Mom chimed in. "She means well, honey. Maybe she was a bit blunt, but you have been very focused on your own finances lately." Dad nodded. "We know you're proud of paying off your loans, but sometimes family needs come first." Ben just looked uncomfortable, staring at his plate. It was like hitting a brick wall. They weren't just dismissing my feelings, they were validating Diane's attack and reinforcing the narrative that I was the problem. In that crushing moment, the painful truth crystallized. They didn't see my hurt or my accomplishment. They saw me as an obligation, a resource they felt entitled to. My value wasn't in being their daughter or sister, but in my bank account. A profound sadness washed over me, followed by a cold resolve. I excused myself early, a new distance forming within me. The months following that painful conversation passed in a focused haze. I threw myself into work, and, more importantly, into aggressively tackling the last remnants of my student loan debt. Each extra payment I made felt like a small victory, a reclaiming of my own financial future. My interactions with my family remained superficial and infrequent. The warmth was gone, replaced by a polite, distant courtesy, mostly centered around the obligatory $750 monthly transfer to my parents. Then, one ordinary Tuesday morning, it happened. An email confirmation popped up. Loan payment processed. Balance $0.00. I stared at the screen, rereading it multiple times. It was done. Years of stress, scrimping, and sacrifice culminated in that single, beautiful zero. The weight lifting off my shoulders was almost physical. I felt lighter, freer than I had in my entire adult life. My apartment, my salary, my future. It was all truly mine now. A powerful urge to celebrate surged through me. And despite everything, the hurtful comments, the public humiliation, the profound disappointment, my first thought was still, somehow, my family. Maybe this achievement, this tangible proof of my hard work, could be a turning point. Maybe we could finally move past the resentment. Holding on to a fragile thread of hope, I picked up the phone and booked a table for 4 at the Cypress Grill, a well-regarded restaurant downtown known for its celebratory atmosphere. It would be just Mom, Dad, Chloe, Ben, and me. A chance, perhaps, for a fresh start. Saturday night arrived, and I dressed carefully, feeling a flutter of nervous anticipation as I headed downtown to the Cypress Grill. I got there a few minutes early, wanting to ensure everything was perfect. The hostess led me to a nice corner table, ideal for conversation. I ordered a celebratory glass of wine and waited. My parents arrived first, exchanging slightly stiff hugs but offering genuine smiles. Then, the restaurant doors opened again. My hopeful feeling plummeted. Walking in behind Chloe and Ben were Diane and Richard, Ben's parents. And behind them, Ben's sister, her husband I vaguely recognized, and their 3 young children fidgeting impatiently. 11 people instead of 5. Chloe breezed over, oblivious or pretending to be. "Hope you don't mind, Liv," she chirped brightly. "Diane insisted the whole family should be here to celebrate your big news." Before I could even react, Diane took charge, directing the staff to push tables together, a commanding general deploying troops. "Since Olivia's finally paid off those pesky loans," Diane announced loudly to the assembled group, gesturing towards the menu, "she can certainly afford to be generous tonight. Order whatever looks good, everyone. Don't hold back. Get the lobster, the aged ribeye." The kids immediately started clamoring for Shirley Temples and steak. I watched in stunned silence as even my own parents, avoiding my eyes, began pointing out expensive appetizers and entrees to each other. The audacity was breathtaking. This wasn't a celebration. It was an ambush, a blatant, orchestrated attempt to exploit my success. Something inside me snapped. The fragile hope shattered, replaced by cold, hard clarity. Okay, I thought, if this is how they want to play it. Excusing myself to the restroom, I instead intercepted our server near the kitchen. "Hi," I said quietly but firmly. "There's been a change. Could you please prepare separate checks? One for me, one for my parents, one for my sister and her husband, and one for the other family. She looked surprised but nodded. I'll pay for my meal and the original table fee only. Back at the chaotic table, I plastered on a brittle smile, enduring toasts about my newfound generosity while they ordered multiple courses, top-shelf liquor, and extra desserts for the kids. Finally, the moment arrived. The server appeared, distributing the separate bills. There must be a mistake, my father immediately protested. This should all be on one check. Olivia is treating us. The server glanced at me. Actually, Dad, I said, my voice steady, I requested separate checks. I'm covering my own meal. The silence that followed was thick with disbelief, quickly turning to outrage. Diane sputtered. But our bill is nearly $900. Chloe looked panicked. The total for the uninvited and those who overordered was around $2,800. I calmly placed my credit card down for my portion. The next day, the pounding on my apartment door was relentless. My parents and Chloe barged in, furious. You owe us $2,800, Olivia, Dad yelled. We had to put it on our credit card. I stood my ground. I invited 4 people. You brought 11 and ordered extravagantly, expecting a free ride. I laid out the years of support, the $750 monthly, the thousands given. It stops now. No more monthly payments, no more bailouts for Chloe. Their shock was palpable. You need to leave, I said, holding the door open. Now, after they finally left, the first thing I did was block their numbers on my phone. An immediate, profound sense of quiet settled over my apartment, and surprisingly, over my mind. The following weeks were peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in years, free from the constant undercurrent of expectation and guilt. I started redirecting the money I'd previously funneled to my family. I opened an investment account and started seriously planning that cross-country road trip through the national parks I'd always dreamed of, but kept postponing. I even began volunteering, mentoring young women entering the tech field in Austin, finding fulfillment in giving back on my own terms. Occasionally, whispers would reach me through mutual acquaintances, tales of how greedy and selfish I'd become, how I'd abandoned my family. At first it stung, but I quickly realized their narrative no longer held power over me. Their opinions couldn't diminish the peace I'd found. One evening, running into an old friend of my mother's at the grocery store provided unexpected validation. I hear things are strained, she said gently, but good for you for setting boundaries. Your parents, well, they've always expected others to carry their load. Then came a handwritten letter from Chloe. She and Ben were divorcing, partly thanks to Diane's meddling. She expressed regret, acknowledged how they'd treated me, and hoped we could talk someday, notably without asking for money. I put the letter away. Maybe someday. Finally, I heard my parents had sold their house and downsized. A flicker of guilt, quickly replaced by relief. They were finally living within their means. Life feels different now, lighter. The quiet isn't loneliness, it's peace. My road trip fund is growing, and the mentoring sessions fill me with a sense of purpose I hadn't realized I was missing. Sometimes, late at night, thoughts of my family surface, not with the old anger or guilt, but with a quiet understanding. I learned that love and obligation aren't the same thing, and that true family support has to flow both ways, built on respect, not just expectation. Protecting my own financial health, my own future, wasn't about being selfish. It was about survival, about finally valuing myself enough to draw a line when kindness was being mistaken for weakness. I know I'm not the only one who's navigated these complicated family dynamics around money and boundaries. It's a tough path, often walked in silence. If my story struck a chord, perhaps sharing your own experiences or thoughts in the comments below could help someone else feel less alone on their journey. Recognizing when to protect your peace is crucial. If you found value here, please consider liking and sharing this story and follow along for more reflections on navigating life's complexities. We all deserve relationships that build us up, not just drain us.